Hello, and welcome to another edition of Old Ways in New Jersey. I'm your host, Angus Crescalespi, and it's my pleasure to welcome to our studio in East Brunswick today a rising star in the world of new wave gospel music. You could ask the question, why do we have new wave gospel music on a show devoted to old ways? Well, the term new wave gospel music is somewhat misleading since its old-time roots are easy to hear. My guests today are Keith Wonderboy Johnson and one of his mentors, Dr. Brenda Hicks, pastor of Mount Calvary Missionary Church in New Brunswick. Born and raised in Brooklyn, Keith Wonderboy Johnson began singing at the age of 5 as a member of the Spiritual Voices, a group founded by his father. As fate would have it, he soon would become a member of the famed Harlem Boys Choir. It was here where Johnson's vocal abilities were fine-tuned and valuable lessons in the areas of showmanship and professionalism were acquired and honed. Although adjusted for a new generation of listeners, Keith's music is definitely a product of the old school of gospel music, invoking the sounds of hand clapping, foot stomping on a wooden floor. As a credit to his tireless work, Johnson has received many awards and recognitions, and I'm pleased that Pastor Brenda Hicks of New Brunswick has brought him to our studio today. Pastor Hicks, you and I have known each other a long time, but you just recently introduced me to Mr. Johnson. But perhaps just to fill in all the viewers, how did you and Mr. Johnson first get to know each other?
Well, actually, I met Mr. Johnson in New York City. We were singing over there, and he was just a little kid at the time, running around with his drumsticks in his hand, and he took an interest in the group. And later on, he played a little bit with the Lumsey sisters, so that's how we actually met. Oh. And his dad had a group as well.
I understand he was a drummer with your group for some time.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Johnson, how did you get the nickname Wonderboy?
I started singing when I was about 5 years old, and it was popular for a little boy to be singing with a group, and they would call him Little, and whatever your first name would be. So my dad and Johnny Martin, who was the manager of the Mighty Clouds of Joy, basically the top group, they wanted me to be different. So instead of calling me Little Keith, they came up with the nickname Little Wonderboy. And kind of stick with me just ever since.
Well, it's my understanding it's kind of a tradition among gospel groups to feature a little kid because the audience can relate to that.
Right, right. Yeah. They don't do that anymore. They stopped. It was good back then, but...
It was kind of nice because it indicates the tradition of passing the music father to son, mother to daughter, generation after generation.
Right.
Anyhow, tell us, what was it like growing up in Brooklyn, New York?
It was an adventure. It was definitely always something to do, something always happening, and I mean, it was definitely an eventful life.
Yeah. Now, your father, he had a group called Spiritual Voices?
Yeah, the Spiritual Voices.
And is that where you got your start with that group?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And what life's lessons did you learn from your father? It was Phil Johnson, right?
Yes. Yeah. I came up with a lot of those old-fashioned Southern sayings. Don't forget the bridge that brought you over. You know, charity begins at home. You know, always be nice. A smile will go further than a frown. Mm-hmm. I came up on old-fashioned sayings.
Brenda, were you brought up much the same way?
Very much so, yes, yes. One of my mom and dad's favorite singing when we thought we were kind of too big for our britches, I would say. That was one of their sayings, that I brought you in this world, I'll take you out this world. That's just to keep you in line. Literally, they wasn't going to do that, but just to keep you in line, let you know that I brought you, I'll take you.
Or it's my house and it's my rule.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Keith, how is your music indebted to the old-time gospel quartets?
Well, it's basically, that's my whole makeup, because I'm what you call a quartet baby. From the time I was a young man, basically just born, that's my father introduced me to the music, and he played it all day, and he was kind of biased. That's all he would play. And, you know, from a young age, I learned to love it.
And Brenda, just for the benefit of our listeners, what is gospel, old-time quartet gospel?
Old-time quartet gospel, I say it's the bridge that kept the old black Negroes together.
Yeah.
You know, kept their morale up. It was just songs that when they were going through the storm and through the rain, and they made melody. They got together and they couldn't really talk, so they sung. And sometimes there were no words to say, but they came out through the song. That's what the gospel was, and that's what it still is today. We use it in a different manner, but it's the same.
Yeah.
Same.
So there were four voices.
Four voices.
And originally a cappella, no instruments.
No instruments in the beginning.
And then, as I recall, what happened is originally, given the lack of instruments, there was hand clapping,
foot stomping,
yeah, and
shaking,
yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, in these small black rural southern churches, made of wood, stomping on the floor gave a pretty resonant sound.
Yeah. And then remember, they had the washboard.
That's right.
They would use that to help keep that sound going. And some churches still now, they don't allow the music. They don't allow the drums or the keyboards like we do now. The upscale churches now, they still have that.
Well, yeah, there was initially, I guess there was resistance to the piano and resistance to the organ.
Absolutely, because it was taking God too far out of it, they thought. So, yeah.
And even today, some of the old-time ministers don't allow drums.
They don't allow it. But if you look in the Word, in Psalms, in the book of Psalms, God inhabits the praises of His people, and they did it through, in 150, it says, praise the Lord on the string instruments, cymbals, loud-sounding cymbals, everything that has breath. So whatever you can get to, praise God with it.
Keith, how has gospel influenced pop music? That's something you know a lot about, I think.
Well, you have a lot of songs that a lot of writers, they actually start with gospel backgrounds. Some of your biggest producers, they actually started out in church. I know a lot of them personally. And as you know, and even some of your biggest stars, they'll tell you, you interview them, actually, where did you get your start? And they say, singing in church.
Gospel, yes.
Gospel
absolutely.
music.
In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's sort of a pecking order. You can start out singing in your local church choir, and then maybe 4 or 5 of the very best from the local church choir might form a local gospel group.
Absolutely.
And then if they're very good, they might become a regional gospel group. And if they're good at that, they might become a national group, or like in Keith's case, an international group.
International, yeah.
I understand you just got back from South Korea.
Yes, I was in Seoul, Korea, and South Korea. Traveled around, we sung for the troops. It's called Lifting Up the Spirit Tour. And we were there for 8 days.
That's a very nice thing to do. Give some morale to our soldiers. Yeah.
Great experience.
Keith, how has your music been influenced by the Motown sound?
Well, it's been influenced a lot because, Motown is basically one of the first places to groom and make the groups professional. They from image, sound, pronunciation of the words. I mean, that's the whole total package. He ran like a machine, and when you come out of that basically showed you that's how it's supposed to be done. Then you have a lot of the quartet groups who basically copy all all the movement, all the singing, all the dynamics of the Temptations and the rest of the groups. And only difference was they just was singing gospel music.
As we move along through your career, tell us about your experiences at the University of Maryland.
Well, I was singing. I didn't sing that much when I was at college, but I did have a few experiences. They actually did. John P. Key came through, and he was on tour, and he stopped through the school, and he sung at the school, and it brought back a lot of memories. And he wound up, I don't know how I wound up on stage, but he wound up calling me on stage. So that was the first time I sung in a while. And then at the end, near the end of my schooling, my senior year, the gospel choir needed a drummer, and one of my roommates was in the choir, and he knew I knew music and I knew how to play, so they kind of wound up, convincing me to come and help them. So but I always listened to gospel during that time.
So you sort of had your toe in the water.
Right.
And then after that, you worked on Wall Street for a while, right?
Yes, I was working at Bankers Trust on Wall Street as an investment banker, and I was dealing with stocks and bonds and dealing with all these things. But, I was doing it was actually my mother's dream. As a parent, my mother and my father, they wanted me to go to school, get a great 9-to-5, and be in the business world, productive citizen. But that wasn't my dream. So I was kind of fulfilling their dream, but my dream, I was a little miserable inside.
You weren't happy.
I wasn't happy. No. Because it's actually what I thought was the dream. Everything wound up being different. I got to Wall Street as I was graduating college. I said that's what I wanted to do. When I got there, I realized that a lot of the people there were overworked, overstressed, underpaid. And then, everything, I just said I was going to get a job on Wall Street. I was going to get a Knicks season pass. Now that I did not know that a Knicks season ticket cost so much. So it was like once I graduated from school, everything that I had listed as what I was going to accomplish. And once I did get there, I realized, no, this is not really what I wanted to do.
And then, how did you make the jump from banking to gospel?
Well, I started going back to concerts and seeing different people, and then realizing that I saw a group, the Canton Spirituals out of Mississippi, and he became like a mentor to me. And then I started, reaching back out to other people that I knew. I basically reached back out to Dr. Hicks, and I started coming back around. I rode a couple of times with her group and seeing just how things, went. And I actually, one of my last trips that I actually made with Dr. Hicks and her group, I had just recorded my CD, which wound up being my breakout CD, and I was still working on it at the time. And I respected the Lumsey sisters so much that I was kind of scared to let them hear it. And I remember letting one of the musicians hear it, and he was like, "This is pretty good. It might can do something if it get out there." So, and I wound up going to a convention with them where you just go and meet people. So I didn't really know anybody. I just went, walked around, shook hands, met different people, just observing.
Yeah. And it worked out. I mean, you were gradually able to make this into a career.
Yes.
But you didn't start out being all roses. No.
Definitely not.
Yeah. Is your music best called urban contemporary gospel?
No, I call my music universal gospel. Universal gospel.
Universal gospel. And what do you mean by that?
Any platform, because I'm going to still sing about Jesus and the Lord, and my topic is not going to change, but I feel like I just change. I'm versatile. I just sing for any background. We've been the house band for the House of Blues music. And we went to each different House of Blues, and we sung gospel, though. We didn't change out. We sung the same thing. We sung at Carnegie Hall. We sung at Madison Square Garden. Different places. We just changed a little bit of our presentation, but our message remained the same.
If I understand right, House of Blues, they often do a Sunday brunch gospel program.
Right, and we was like the house band at this time. They started opening House of Blues all on the East Coast, in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Orlando, Florida, Chicago, Las Vegas. So at that particular time, the lady Sylvia St. James, she took an interest in our group, and we wound up being the host band.
And Keith, what do you like best about your profession?
People. The many of people that you get a chance to meet, a lot of them come to express how your music has really touched their lives and changed their lives and helped them get through something. And that's what I get the most. It's not the awards, I think it's the people.
And the flip side of that is, what do you like the least?
The least? Exposure. I think gospel should have way more exposure than anything else, any other type of music, any other type of event, because we're basically uplifting people's spirits and basically helping them to maintain a lifestyle that one day they get the ultimate reward, which is to go to heaven. That's why I couldn't. I had a complex last year. I did a big concert in Cincinnati, and it was on the same exact day that the Jets were playing the Bengals in the playoffs. And I've never saw the lines that long wrapped around the corner. I've never waited on the line that long for anything. Then I started thinking, I was like, wow, I listened to the news, you had over 75,000 people gather in this stadium in the freezing cold. It was like 10 degrees with no coat, to see, nothing against them, to see some men throw a ball. And I was like, you can't get 75,000 church people in one building at one time for no event. I just felt it would be great if it would change.
Understood. And Brenda, let me toss the same pair of questions to you. What do you like best? But let's give it a little different spin. What do you like best about your ministry as opposed to your singing?
The reward of people being blessed, people being helped, to know that you're sowing just words of encouragement into their spirits, lifting their heads, their morale, letting them know that no matter what you go through, you can come out. Find the positiveness in whatever your situation is. Things are going to happen. You're going to have situations. You're going to have a lot of ups and downs, a whole lot of downs, but find the positiveness in whatever you're going through and use that to pull yourself up. And don't think that it's over just because it looks so grim or so dim. You can always make it.
And what do you like least about your ministry, your calling?
I wish I had more voice, more hearers to the voice. If I had more people that I could reach, if I could reach the multitude of people, I just believe I could convince them that you're going to be okay. If I can reach the masses, that's what I want. I want the mask.
Yeah. It's sort of similar to what Keith just said.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Keith, if you could go back in time, is there anything that you would change?
Not really. Like I said, the experiences that I went through is what made me the man that I am today. And, I always say, one of my things I say I'm an old man trapped in a young man body. Because for a young man, I have been through a lot. I've seen a lot. The only thing I would change is my timing. I basically became a national, international artist. I guess it was like 1997. So if I could have, I would have pushed it. It would have happened before 1997, earlier, because as a young man coming up, I had a few people that I admired as a young man, but the majority of people that I admired were actually gospel singers. So, I looked up, admiring them. So as I became this artist, I got to meet a lot of them and become friends with them. But because there was such an age difference, as I became friends with them, different ones started passing along. And then I wish, I was always saying to myself, I wish I could have knew them longer.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking a lot in a theoretical way about the nature of your music, but for the benefit of our viewers, I believe your latest release includes a cut called True Love.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I was thinking about the nature of the world today. You have a lot of people looking for love, some in the right places, some in the wrong places. They all on the internet reading books and everything. And I just feel like people need to realize that true love starts with the love of Jesus Christ. So if you learn how to love Jesus Christ, then you'll learn how to love yourself. And if you learn how to love yourself, you'll learn how to love somebody else.
Well, what do you say? Let's take a listen to that.
That'll be fine.
Yeah, true love. A lot of people spend a lot of time and money on the internet and reading books, trying to find true love. But true love can only come from one place. Let me tell you my story. Search the whole world for a love worth my time. Made a lot of mistakes trying to decide. Put my heart in places it didn't need to be. When I found the love of Jesus, it's all I need. That's when I found real, true love. My heart can finally breathe. And material things, no matter who or what I had, it didn't mean a thing. Trusting my heart with friends and my family too. But the best thing I ever did was give my heart to you. That's when I found true love. My heart can finally breathe. True love. Yeah. I don't have to look anymore. No, I don't. Yeah. But I found out the love of Jesus Christ. I once was blind, but you opened my blinded eyes. And ever since the moment I got to know you, better for myself. It makes such a difference in my life. It's sweeter now. Oh, yeah. I can finally breathe. Yeah, 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 yeah. My search is over. Can I tell you what I found? I found love. True love. I found love. It's in my heart. Somebody out there been looking for love for a long time. When you met that person, you said, "Oh, they're so fine." You wined and dined, trying to figure out what's next. But when your money ran out, they wouldn't even return your text. Now that you found Jesus, you found a true friend. He won't leave you, be with you till the end. True love starts with Jesus. Ah, Jesus. Mary's little baby, he'll hold you in the midnight hour when nobody wanna be bothered with you. He'll wrap you in his arms. He'll talk to you. He'll love you. He'll make if you want to call his name. Jesus. The more I call his name, the better I feel. Jesus. I love you, Jesus. I'm here to tell you I love you from the bottom of my heart to the depths of my soul. Oh, Jesus, Jesus.
So, Brenda, what did you think of that cut?
Wonderful. I love that cut. And Keith, of course, does such a wonderful job with it. And I like what he said. He said, true love begins with Jesus Christ. If you learn how to love Jesus, you'll learn how to love yourself. And I just want to put a little twist to that.
Okay.
If you learn how to accept the love of Jesus Christ, then you can accept the love that's already on the inside of you, that Christ put on the inside of you. And then it will help you love others and receive love. A lot of our problem is we can't receive love. So we can't love anybody because we can't love ourselves. But if we can just remember that Christ loved us unconditionally, agape love, then we can begin to give out. Because he told his disciples, freely you have received, freely you give.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's a nice lead into my next question. Keith, in your concerts, do you do testimony? Do you testify?
Definitely. Now that I'm a type of person, I'm like, you have to show me. So sometimes the best way for somebody to believe that the Lord will make a way, you have to let them know, okay, he did this for me. So the same way he did this for me, he can do that for you.
And by the same token, Brenda, how do you go about forming an emotional connection with your audience?
The very same way. You got to share. Be willing to open up to them and let them see your story. Let them hear your story. Tell them, I've been there. I've been through things. Let them know if you smoked cigarettes at one time, if you gambled, if you were on drugs, although I never did that stuff now, Mom and Daddy. But if you did that, it's okay because God loves you unconditionally. He will forgive you. He will restore you. Once you're restored, then guess what? You becomes that testimony now. Every test becomes a testimony. So whatever you go through, let the audience know, I wasn't born this way. Perfect, saved, looking good. My hair get messed up. I go through too. But still, look at me. If I survived it, you can too. That's a connection.
Keith, it sounds like she's talking about storytelling. Is that right? The testifying is really telling a story.
It's storytelling.
Yeah. It is a spiritual journey.
And Keith, you've been pretty successful at this. How do you explain that you've been successful in a business where so many other people have failed?
Well, one is I definitely put the Lord first. A lot of times people don't like to wait until the Lord make things happen for you. So sometimes it's not on your will, but it's on His will, what He wants for you.
And how hard do you push yourself?
Very hard. Sometimes people tell me I do too much, but I'm really hungry. The same hunger I use for the worldly things and the secular things. When I was chasing the dream of possibly singing, secular music, or whether it was athletics, and everything else, I use that same type of energy to pursue what I'm doing now.
And tell us, when are you completely satisfied with your work?
Oh, I'm never satisfied. Every time I accomplish one thing, I think of something else that I want to do.
And we're almost running out of time, but what was the most important day in your life?
Well, the most important day besides me and the May 17th is the day I was born, but
well, that makes sense. Yeah.
I think it would happen to be October 27th. Which was the day I gave my life to Jesus Christ. It was actually on my mother's birthday. We were in church. It was October 27th, and I gave my life to Jesus
October
Christ.
27th, what year?
It was actually 1995.
Okay. And finally, some people say that Keith Wonderboy Johnson has it all. What is it that you don't have? I
don't have... I don't have a Grammy. But, I mean, one thing I do have that I feel I have it all, I have the love of Jesus Christ, and I have peace of mind, and I have, you know, just the joy of Jesus Christ. When you have that, it do feel like you have everything else. It seems like anything else, I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily need, but I do have all that I need.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining us in our studio in East Brunswick today, and it's been very enlightening. I've learned a lot about gospel music.
Amen. Thank you for having us.
Ditto.